disruption to global supply chains. Staff shortages remain an issue, and of course the cost of energy is a problem for all. Recent government announcements, including the energy and trade intensive industries sector-specific support, will target energy intensive sectors as other packages are wound down by the government in the spring. This package looks to target industries associated with higher energy usage, often less able to pass on costs to their customers due to international competition. The government's new approach aims to support those sectors whilst encouraging businesses to reduce energy demand and diversify supply. That might be easier said than done, of course, Chairman. Energy is certainly a high priority for businesses contacting the Growth Hub, where we continue to deliver business support. We continue to see a high demand for business advice, and there is a particular drive currently to increase the online presence of local businesses too. At your last meeting, Samantha Harrison updated you on next steps for the Growth Hub. You will recall that 2.6 million of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund was to be awarded to the district councils. This meant that business support funding currently being provided by the Growth Hub will be unfunded from later this year. I can confirm that following discussions at Scrutiny, the team have once again put an offer to the district partners to try to confirm the future of this well-used hub. The proposed future service would include geographic-based generalist advisors, thematic and sector-focused specialist advisors and programs, a startup offer, events program, and associated website and promotional activity. This would be funded by a shared service model based on contributions from all 10 local authorities in Greater Lincolnshire. Of course, we wish this to proceed, and it is vitally important, in my view, that the Growth Hub's work is consistent across the whole of the Greater Lincolnshire area. Otherwise, we end up with a disparate and disjointed service in certain parts of our county. Alongside the business advice, we continue to develop physical places for businesses to grow. I'm pleased to update you on progress at the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone near Holbeach. The Council's first innovation centre, the Hub, which opened in September, welcomed its first 2 business tenants in November, taking over a total of 5 offices. We have also recently received an application from an innovative food manufacturer for 2 of the workshops, and we are in discussion with a further 2 businesses about location to the Hub. Interest in the 27-acre Phase 2 also continues, including having now reached heads of terms stage with a Buckinghamshire-based business interested in 1 acre of the site. In East Lindsey, the Boston Road Industrial Estate Expansion Scheme in Horncastle is at an outline design stage and is due to be presented to this committee in February. The current estate is at capacity, and there is clear local demand for up to a further 9 acres of expansion. We continue to push for better infrastructure for all our residents and businesses, and I'm pleased to see the progress that is being made with charging infrastructure. Lincolnshire is the lead authority for a regional pilot of the local electric vehicle infrastructure pilot scheme. The team are currently reviewing potential areas for charging point locations in areas that pose difficult challenges. The pilot will mean that we are better prepared for rolling out a larger scheme in the future. A paper on electric charging, including this pilot, will be coming to Scrutiny shortly. Infrastructure investment in Lincolnshire and for the benefit of Lincolnshire is something that we all welcome as an authority. But as members know, we do have an unprecedented number of nationally significant infrastructure projects active in the county at present. The Executive will ensure that we respond effectively to these schemes to make sure that Lincolnshire has a strong voice. Infrastructure that is proposed for Lincolnshire must be in our interest too. And finally, a little housekeeping and dates for your diary. Further to the update at the last Scrutiny Committee, you should have received a copy of the pub diversification programme flyer in your pigeonholes. Please do promote this to your residents and constituents. It really is an excellent scheme for our communities. Following the success of the 2022 awards, we are delighted to announce the Lincolnshire Apprenticeship Championship Awards 2023, which will be delivered in partnership with the Lincolnshire Public Sector Compact and the Greater Lincolnshire LEP. The awards will open for applications in January 23, with award categories for apprentices, employers and trading providers. The winners will be announced at a celebration event on the 18th of May 2023 at the showroom in Lincoln. The deadline for entries is midnight on the 10th of March. Thank you, Chairman, and I'm happy to pick up any issues that members wish to raise with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Davey. It's interesting, there were themes in that. I mean, clearly the key thing was the pub diversification, which I'm sure all members of the committee will be taking a personal interest in and assisting our great pubs. But there were themes of innovation there, which are enormously important. We hear a great deal on the national front about the importance of innovation and how Britain is at risk of falling behind. Here in what outsiders may think of as sleepy rural Lincolnshire, we take it very seriously, and I'm very encouraged to hear the comments you've made. Similarly, it is worth bearing in mind, I think, for all of us, the importance of the role that local government can play in encouraging a healthy economy and in facilitating the work of the private sector. We are not opponents, we are partners, and it's good to see all tiers of local government in the county cooperating closely on that front. So I'm going to turn it now to questions from members, and Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. I wondered if we had any feedback from the executive member on the likely funding for new burdens relating to the Environment Act. The cost of separating out waste is going to be significant for districts and the county. I wondered if we had any news of any potential money coming our way. Secondly, there has not been a meeting of the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership since July, and there is none in the diary. Does that mean the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership is finished?
Councillor Davis.
I'll pick up the first part, and I know Councillor McNally's on the call, so he'll answer Councillor Baxter's question regarding the Waste Partnership. The simple answer to the question is no, we have no clarification on funding streams to deal with burdens yet. It is promised, government is making the right noise, but we have no specific allocation for any local authority in relation to the Environment Act burdens and responsibilities. And I will keep all members through this committee updated as soon as we do have something to pass on to members. But at this moment, the answer is no.
I think we have Councillor McNally online. Councillor McNally, could you pick up the second point of Councillor Baxter's question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The Waste Partnership hasn't met because we was waiting for the Environment Act to see what the burdens and everything was before. So it'll probably be beginning of February or middle of February before we have the next meeting anyway, but it's not cancelled. And like I've said before, if there is anything he's very keen to ask questions, then by all means just give me a quick email.
Excellent stuff. Thank you for that, Councillor McNally. The line was not perfect there, but we understood it was likely to meet in May. You were in February. You were waiting for the details of the Environment Act, which many people are waiting for. And if you need any further detailed information, Councillor Baxter, drop Councillor McNally a line. Councillor Kelly.
Good morning. Good morning. Could you just give me more detail about, obviously the cost of energy is a big burden to all of us, a bit more detail about what you are trying to do to enable businesses to cope with the rising cost of energy and how they're diversifying into different types of energy. Thank you.
I think it would be helpful, Councillor Kelly, if we asked Dan Clayton, who's our Sustainability Officer, to give you a note, and I'll make a note on my notes to ask him to contact you in relation to energy projects that might be of assistance to businesses across the county. Government is obviously leading on energy, and until we deal with the ramifications of high gas pricing and the use of energy in our industrial sectors, and if we change to a much more stable pricing structure, it's going to be hard for businesses to make the long-term forward predictions. The good news, of course, is that wholesale prices have fallen now below the government cap level. So we hopefully will see price reductions coming into play very soon, and hopefully government will embrace the opportunity to come up with a long-term and sustainable solution to our energy supply. We do need renewables, but we do need to ensure that there is a mixed basket of technologies around energy that can deliver stable supply at an affordable price, not just for businesses, but for all consumers. Because obviously, if residents don't have any money after they've paid their energy bills, the economy suffers because there's no money coming into the economy through our consumer spend. So energy is a big, big challenge. Government is trying to get the position resolved, but I still think there are issues that they need to get right before we can say the energy crisis of 2022 is behind us. It is my personal view that high energy costs are something that businesses are going to need to factor in to their business modelling for at least a decade, but not at current levels as of today. Hopefully that's helpful, but I'll ask Dan Clayton to drop you a note and have a chat with you about schemes that we're involved with and any issues that might be useful for you to alert him to. Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you very much, both. I'm seeing no further questions in the chamber. Councillor Dyer, do you have anything you wish to add to? No? In that case, thank you very much indeed. Councillor McNally, did you have anything that you wanted to present to the committee?
Nothing that's further from the agenda, Chairman. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you both, our executive councillors, very much indeed. We'll now move on to announcements from lead officers, and we have some in the chamber with us and we have some online, starting, I believe, online. Justin Brown. Good morning, Justin.
Chairman, good morning. No, nothing further to add from what Councillor Davey has said and from the paper that's in front of the committee this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Moving on, and in the chamber, Nicole Hilton.
No, thank you.
We're doing very well for time this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Next, we have Chris Miller. Anything from the Head of Environment? He's not with us today at all, right. In that case, we move to Samantha Harrison, who is not with us. We'll try Mike Reid, who definitely is with us. Mike.
Morning. Thank you, Chairman. Nothing further to the report, which I'm delivering shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was worth the wait to get there. We may now proceed in that case, colleagues, with the discussion items, and we move to item 5 on the agenda pack, which is Revenue and Capital Budget Proposals 2023-24. This pre-decision executive scrutiny report is on pages 15 to 22 of the agenda pack. The paper outlines the budget proposals for the next financial year, 23-24. The report specifically looks at the budget implications for the Council's environment and economy services. And the actions that are before us are these. The committee is invited to scrutinise the proposals and make comments which will be reported to the Executive at its meeting on 7th of February 2023, prior to it making final budget proposals for the 23-24 year, and determine whether the committee supports these proposals. Views of the committee will be shared with the Executive. And I believe the report will be introduced by Keith Noyland, Strategic Financial Lead, Place, Fire and Rescue. Keith.
Thank you. Good morning. On pages 15 to 18 of the pack, I've provided some of the economic background and some of the detail of the provisional local government settlement, which provides context in terms of the Council's overall financial position. Given the uncertainty in the economy and future funding levels, we're again presenting budget proposals for just a single year. The Executive approved these budget proposals for consultation at their meeting on the 4th of January. The proposed revenue budgets for environment and economy are on page 19 of the pack, table A at the top of that page. The table shows the movements between the current year's budgets in terms of pressures and savings. It does exclude pay inflation, which has been budgeted at 4%, but is currently being held centrally pending settlement of the pay award. As you'll see, there isn't a great deal of change proposed from the current budgets for these services. The main change is a projected saving of £735,000 in waste services, and that results from the continued rollout of the separated paper and card collections. The reprocurement of the household waste recycling centre contracts, which is later on the agenda, does create a potential cost pressure of £456,000, but that doesn't result in an immediate increase in budget requirement, as in the short term it can be funded from increased income being achieved from electricity generated at the Energy from Waste plant. Turning to the capital budgets, Table B on page 20 sets out the proposed capital programme. Other than some rephasing of expenditure, there's no change to the programme that was approved last year for environment and economy. The capital programme does continue to be supplemented by funding from the Development Fund. A total of 3.44 million was previously approved to increase capacity to carry out drainage investigation and repair work. That scheme does continue into 2023-24 with a forecast spend for the year of 1.387 million. Just touching on the timescales for the rest of the budget process, consultation meeting with business representatives, trade unions and other partners is scheduled for the 27th of January. The proposals are now live on Let's Talk Lincolnshire with an opportunity for the public to comment, and the Executive will make its final budget proposals on the 7th of February, which will then be considered by full council on the 17th of February. Hopefully that summarises the main points. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that summary. I'd now like to invite members of the committee who might wish to make a relevant statement or have a question. Do I have anybody from the floor? I'm seeing Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for always letting me go first. It's great. I have two questions. One is about the £700,000 saving on the waste contract, which you said was related to the rollout of paper and card. Is that something that we share with the district council that collects it? Is there a financial impact on the district councils, plural, I think, who collect the paper and card? And if so, is it a positive? Is it a positive financial impact on those district councils, or negative? If it's negative, then what do we do to work in partnership with them to ensure the paper and card is collected properly? My second question is about the table on page 20. I think it's on page 20, yeah, where we increase the amount that we have put aside for the provision of superfast broadband across the county from 2 million to 5.5 million. Can you add any colour to that figure? Thank you.
I think Mike Reid is going to pick up the first question. Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. We don't actually share the financial gain from the, it's called the twin stream, the paper and card separate collection. We do actually finance that and carry the whole risk ourselves. So we pay for the bins, and we support the district council staff with our own team of employees to kind of deliver this project. And we've got the ongoing risk of prices essentially going negative or going down. We've had some very high paper and card prices in the last 12 months in particular, and we have seen the benefit of that. But however, the prices are at their lowest they've been for many years now, and we've got the risk that we will have to essentially net off any costs that we have against any savings that have been made. So just to summarise, I think what Councillor Baxter was asking, we have the responsibility wholly ourselves, but that can go either way. So if it does become a cost burden, LCC does actually have that risk. But initially, before the project began, we did offer with the districts for them to be partners and go on board and share some of that risk and some of the initial cost, the millions of pounds that are spent on the purple lidded bins. But that wasn't something that the districts actually wanted to take us up on, that offer. So I hope that responds. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can just add a supplementary before we go to your next question, Councillor Baxter. I'm glad you made the point about the districts, because this was the programme was arrived at cooperatively by all parties. But the ultimate beneficiary, when there is anything to be made out of paper and card, is obviously going to be our resident, because anything that we make from that, it doesn't go into a kind of holiday fund or anything. It is offset against the cost of the overall waste disposal service for which this council is responsible. That's correct, isn't it, Mike?
It is indeed, and some of the income which we have been seeing will be put back into an improved engagement programme, where we will be visiting schools with the performance team, who have got the on-the-ground experience of going around and talking to residents. So that will be ploughed back. Some of that experience and some of the cost of that team will be ploughed back into talking to children, going visiting schools, and just a wider engagement programme with the overall objective of improving recycling and reducing how much waste people produce. So it doesn't go into a big pot of money that we don't feed back into improving the service overall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And that's given whoever's going to pick up the issue of the table on page 22, was it? Is that going to be you, Keith?
I can certainly clarify the table on page 20. I mean, the profile there for broadband is the expectation of spend on that project. It's unchanged from previous years. In terms of adding colour to the project, I think that's probably better for Justin. As an accountant, I only do monochrome.
Councillor Baxter, does that answer your question? Are you happy with that?
No, perhaps I was too colourful in my question. I just wondered what the £5 million was for.
Mr.
Chairman, would you like me to come in on that?
Yes, please. Anybody with an answer?
Okay, so yeah, thank you, and apologies I'm not with you today. One or two things have transpired against me. When we started the Superfast broadband programme, which was in about 2012, we agreed with our contractor, which was BT, that there would be a performance bonus that we would share with them, given the number of residents that they were providing superfast broadband to. Because the programme has done reasonably well, we now cover 96% of properties in Lincolnshire with superfast, then the amount of money that came back from BT is higher. It comes back on the understanding that we will use it to fill in any gaps in terms of broadband provision and any increases in things like moving from superfast broadband at 30 meg per second up to gigabit type speeds. We are going through a process with government at the moment, which will take around 9 months to understand exactly what they're going to invest in those areas where there are gaps. Once that process is concluded, we will understand what the remaining gaps are, and that is what we will look to invest that remaining money in. So therefore, I would expect somewhere in the autumn to Christmas of 2023, we'll be able to explain in more colourful detail, particularly what that money will be spent on. But the understanding is very much it will be spent on broadband and on getting the service to as many residents as is physically possible.
Thank you very much for that. I just to add on that, I think we're all aware, particularly in the rural parts of our county, of the enormous importance of high quality broadband, and indeed I've had in my own district ward, an issue of the company which was being really held back, and actually the people involved in our programme here at County were able to step in and help this company with sorting out broadband problems which were quite severe. I think it would be helpful, Justin, if we might have perhaps at the midpoint in the year just a verbal update to let us know where we're going with that programme, and we look forward to a full briefing toward the back end of the year to understand how that money will be spent. Does that now answer your question, Councillor Baxter?
Yeah, if you permit me to go a bit further, it's a lot of money. I think it's the biggest ticket item on our list. I still don't quite get it. I understand that people like... I've become interested in it lately because people have been asking me about Lightspeed and Up and all these people that are digging up the roads or putting in the fibres in Market Deeping. However, those companies will put in the infrastructure where it's profitable to do that, and then it's... Have I understood that it's for the local authority, for government money, to fill in the bits which are difficult to reach? A bit like the railways. You can run a service between Leeds and London, but if you want to go to Aberdeen, it's for the government to fork out for that. Is that... Have I understood it correctly?
In broad terms, yes.
Justin, sorry, I cut across you. Please go ahead.
Chairman, my apologies. Yeah, that is correct. There are, of course, a number of rules and regulations which make it a very delicate exercise. And what we'll do when we come in the summer, as you asked, Councillor Carrington, is ensure that we bring some indicative maps which explain our tactics and how we would look to invest in those places where the private sector will simply not do so.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful. Thank you for that. I'm looking around the room for any further questions. I'm not seeing any. I'm going to raise just one myself, which slightly refers back to waste, so it might be heading in your direction, Mike. Slightly off topic, last year we spoke about the importance of waste collection services. I think we still to receive a report, which I think I recollect was promised on recycling and food waste collection across the county. I think our list that, I'm not sure that is an item which is as yet programmed. It certainly hasn't yet been received. I just wonder whether you could give us any assurances that that report will make its way to us in the course of our 23-24 agendas.
Yes, Chairman, I can confirm, I've agreed recently with Chiara that we will bring a report on the paper and card project to talk about recycling issues. We've also got a report, I think they're scheduled for the April agenda. There's also a report for the engagement programme, which I just briefly touched on. The reason we haven't come forward with the food waste proposal is that, as Councillor David responded to earlier, we're still waiting for the information from government, and that's imminent, so we're led to believe. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, waiting for the details of the Environment Act, and it does go back to this modern practice of central government of passing acts like the Environment Act that, in the old sense of the word, aren't really acts. They're frameworks which are then filled in through statutory instruments. So you get the provision that you know is coming, but you don't quite know what that provision is. And there's an awful lot in the Environment Act that could have very, very significant impacts on our residents, but also for all tiers of local government. And we simply don't quite know how that's going to work. We look forward to seeing those in a few months' time. Right, I think we've probably exhausted that one. Thank you, officers, for your responses. So the proposal before us is as follows. I move that the committee supports the budget proposal, and the comments from today's debate are shared with the executive ahead of their consideration of this item on the 7th of February. So we will now vote. All those in favour, please show. Any against? I see none, and I think no abstentions. That was unanimous. Thank you very much for your contributions on that item. We now move on to item 6, which is reprocurement of the household waste recycling centres, management and operation contracts. It's a waste morning this morning. This is a pre-decision executive Councillor Scrutiny report. It's on pages 23 to 32 of the agenda pack. This paper invites the committee to consider a report regarding the re-procurement of the Household Waste Recycling Centre's management and operational contract. This decision is due for consideration by the Executive Councillor for Waste and Trading Standards between the 23rd and the 27th of January 2023. And the actions before us, the committee is invited to consider the report, agree on whether we support the recommendations to the Executive Councillor, and share our comments with him ahead of his decision. So, Mike Reid, it is Mike Morning. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies, my laptop charger seems to be dying, so apologies for that disruption.
Not at all. You take your time and get your technology sorted out. It sometimes helps us, but often it doesn't quite.
Thank you. This report discusses the Household Waste Recycling Centre operation contracts. Historically, these contracts have been operated by external contractors, and of our 11 sites that we own, 10 are operated by external contractors. The contracts that we have at the moment are due to expire at the end of March. We therefore need new contracts to replace those from the 1st of April to enable the service to continue. Now, I think everyone accepts that recycling centres, they're good for the public. They enable the public to dispose of materials efficiently and in an environmentally beneficial way. But they are actually a very good method and very cost effective in themselves, because they allow recycling to take place, and recycling through the recycling centres is a very cost effective way of dealing with material. So rather than material being presented at the curbside where it would be disposed of possibly through incineration or landfill, if we can get as much material through the recycling centres as possible, that can be disposed of or recycled at a much reduced cost, and also a benefit to the environment. So these recycling centres are really important to the county's circular economy agenda, and I think they are highly valued by the public. However, we do need to keep them operating, and therefore we need to, in the last few months we've been out to tender and received quotes back and prices for the actual operation of these 10 sites. I mentioned the one site that we operate ourselves is at Tattershall, and that's something which is operated on a different type of model, because it's a recently opened facility, but it's something that we may want to consider in the future if we want to think of a different operating model of incorporating Tattershall into the externalised model, or potentially bringing the external model and bringing that within LCC's full control. But that's something that we can look at in the next couple of years. So coming back to my point, initial point, we have been through a tender process where we've received quality and price bids back from 5 compliant bidders. We have a recommendation that the 10 sites are kind of awarded to 2 renowned contractors that we have dealt with before. They're reputable businesses, and I think they are very good in terms of quality and also in terms of cost. So it's something that we are recommending that we enter into these agreements, and the contracts are awarded immediately to enable a mobilisation for the 1st of April. If we don't do this, if we don't award the contracts, then that obviously jeopardises the service, and we may be in a position where we can't open 10 recycling centres from the 1st of April. So it's quite critical that we do have a decision to award the contracts. As Keith touched on earlier, the prices that we've received back are higher than the current prices. They are £456,000 per year, higher than what we're actually currently operating at. That's to be expected, because the current prices were received 6 years ago, and I think we've all kind of experienced the inflationary issues that we've had in the last few years, not just to do with inflation, but also to do with the changes in policy on national minimum wage. So the £456,000 has been budgeted for. It is expected, But I think the overall value, if we didn't have these contracts in place, there would be far bigger impact on our budgets, and not just the budgets, but the environment, if we don't actually award these contracts. So in a nutshell, I think the recommendation is that we proceed with awarding the contracts, and any cost burden pressure that we have from having these sites awarded can be met from the existing waste service revenue budgets. That essentially concludes my summary. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Before I move to members, and we have some members who wish to speak, I think, and I've discussed this off-grid with officers, I think it would be really interesting for committee members, should they also be interested, to actually visit some of these. We can learn a very great deal from our officers and a very great deal from the excellent documentation which is put before us. But I think it would be helpful to this committee to actually understand the challenges faced by the staff working for our contractors, or in the case of Tattershall, working for us at these centres. So if members are content with that, and I'm seeing some nods around the room, I'll ask officers to arrange something for us later in the year at a suitable time. Right, speakers. First person with their hand up was Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that update, Mike. Some of that information was provided after I indicated to speak. The question was regarding the Tattershall site, and are there any plans to incorporate that into the 10 and to make that 11, because that's in-house at the present time. So some of that answer you did indicate there, so hopefully we can have an update on that if there are plans for that all 11 to be incorporated into the strategy. And Mr. Chairman, I agree with you regarding the site visit. It may be worth visiting, or maybe more than one, to look at any differences and observe firsthand. I know I visit the sporting site. Also regarding the wider environmental context of this, we do need to promote the availability of this site, of these sites across the county, and continue to clamp down on the antisocial behaviour which is fly tipping, because we have a number of these sites, and fly tipping is a blight to our countryside and does cost the taxpayer money to clean up. I know district councils do press on regarding enforcement, and also referred earlier to education regarding the use of waste and recycling materials. So I'll leave that contribution for there, but hopefully we can press on with these sites, and also look at continue for cost effectiveness as is in the paper today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I don't think there was anything for you to come back on there, so I'll move to our next speaker, Councillor Bowles.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just two questions, Mike, really. The list of preferred bidders, is that, are they the current providers, or is that going to mean a change on those sites? And if it is going to be a change, how is that going to be managed for the public, so that there's no sort of change in provision and the standards that they're currently receiving? And then linked to what the Chairman said really about suggesting site visits, I'd support that. Obviously, the only sort of things I know are the Gainsborough site, because that's, you know, my area and what people come to me for. So my second question is on that issue really. The only issue and complaint I get about that site now is that quite regular, over a weekend, a whole waste stream you won't be able to get rid of at the site. So for example, green waste, for a whole weekend they won't be able to accept green waste. So residents obviously contact me. So I'm just wondering if within the contract there are triggers for that kind of thing, so that you know, whether it's penalties are incurred if sites are continually unable to accept certain waste streams for periods of time. Thank you.
Mike, would you like to pick up those points for Councillor Bowles?
Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the bidders, the first question, one of the bidders, Sid Dennis and Sons, is one of the incumbents. He currently operates 2 sites at Skegness and Louth. I think he will be potentially awarded a 3rd site. So we do have an ongoing historical relationship with Sid Dennis. The other company, EWC, they are new to this area. They're not currently operating any recycling centres. However, we have dealt with them in the historical past, and I think actually they did operate the Gainsborough site quite a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, but they are a reputable company, and we do see their vehicles in the area, so they do have business already in Lincolnshire. I think it's something that we're looking forward to partnering with them just to see if there's innovation or any changes that we could take on board for all our sites and just create some improvements. In terms of transition to the public, there shouldn't be any foreseeable gaps, because we do have 2 closed days. It offers us the opportunity to have that seamless handover between the incumbents and any new contractors. There won't be any gaps, and as far as the public will see, it will be business as usual, so it shouldn't be an issue. In terms of the second question on the waste stream disruption, we do occasionally have disruption, unfortunately. It's not a perfect world, but this is not linked necessarily to the performance of the site. Normally when we have these kind of issues, it's because of supply chain issues with the final recycling outlet or disposal outlet, or something to do with the haulage. I think it's something that we've faced quite a bit in the last 12 months, and we are a bit more agile and a bit more geared up to deal with it and inform the public when we do face disruption. It's inevitable sometimes, because due to any situation on the road, trucks may not be able to actually service the containers as quickly as we'd like. But we do inform the public as soon as we're kind of have that knowledge at our hands. So it's something that we have worked on a great deal in the last 12 months, and it is an improving situation, but ultimately it will never be perfect, because there are other issues outside of our control. Thank you.
Thank you. You happy with those answers, Councillor Wells? Excellent. And our next speaker is Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mike, for your summary. It's already really been mentioned. I'm really for recycling centres, but in my division, I have loads of issues with fly tipping, and there used to be a Saturday service where, a lorry used to come round and people could put mattresses and ovens and the rest of it that we see in many areas of the country. So I'm just concerned about the amount of fly tipping, because often if people don't have cars, they can't get the waste to the recycling centre. And I know this is a problem that you can't solve. It's just that, as my colleagues already said, it's getting worse, isn't it? Fly tipping is a national issue. And I just think I don't know how to solve it really, but I'm just pointing out that it is a real issue, Mike, in my division.
Mike.
Thank you. It is a blight on the environment, and I think it's not unique to Lincolnshire. It is a national issue, as you've pointed out. In terms of collections for residents who don't have access to vehicles, the district councils, in your case the city council, can offer a bulky waste or a supplementary service themselves if they want to bring that service forward. We are the waste disposal authority, so we dispose of the material that the district councils collect. We would support any district if they want to increase their kind of bulky waste or other kind of services. We would support that with enhanced disposal outlets, but ultimately that is responsible of the district councils to collect if it is a matter of collecting from households. It's not something that's not within our remit, that's not our function. But it is something which we are very conscious that there is a perception that access to recycling centres is related to fly tipping, which is I don't fully agree with that argument, because I think a lot of the fly tipping that we've experienced in the last few years has been on an industrial scale, and it's not tax-paying residents who suddenly can't be bothered going to a recycling centre and therefore would take to carrying out illegal action, which it can be enforced on. People have been prosecuted. It's something that I don't fully buy the argument that people can't get to a recycling centre and therefore they resort to becoming criminals, I think it's not a reasonable argument to me. But we do have plenty of capacity at the recycling centres, and we have quiet periods where people could access, but unfortunately it is access by vehicle, and that's where I think it might be a discussion to be had with the City Council about possibly increasing their kind of collection service. But it's at the moment it's not within our gift. Thank you.
Can I just, yeah, thanks, Mike. I understand that. I just wanted to, could I come and have a conversation with you about, I mean, I will have a conversation with Lincoln City Council, and I do talk to neighbourhood managers who, you know, are responsible for dealing with this, particularly, as you know, in Sinsel Bank, and Monks Road, it's a real issue, and I do realise it is the responsibility of Lincoln City Council. It seems, you know, the assumption is that everybody has a car, and many people do, but if you don't have a car, I think that is the problem. Anyway, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kelly, for raising that really interesting point. I think it's one that affects everybody in this chamber, members and officers alike. I'm really interested here that you have that problem really very much toward the centre of Lincoln. I've kind of associated it very much with our more rural areas where, you know, the mattress, the fridge, the old flat-pack furniture that's dumped at the side of the road. I know that in North Kesteven, where I'm dual-hatted, officers did some work on this, and their view, which I think is reflected across the Waste Partnership, is actually that it's not primarily driven by access to the recycling centre, that it's almost social media related, that there is a kind of new breed of I'm calling them white van persons, and I'm being careful not to be disparaging there, but people with a van who will pick up your rubbish. They advertise, in quotes, the service on social media. They'll appear, they'll take cash, they'll disappear, and that stuff then appears at the side of some country lane. And you're absolutely right, it then has to be picked up at the cost of the local waste collection authority. Certainly in the case of North Cairn, I think I'm right in saying, Mike, every other waste collection authority, anything that is picked up, we go through, it is assessed, and if there is any record traceable, we do prosecute. And I know there have been big fines, confiscation of vans, that kind of thing, which have gone on, and rightly so, not only in my own district, but across the whole of the county, and that is encouraging. But it will be interesting to hear at this committee what progress you make in the city. Mike, I think you want to come back.
Thank you. In the county, I think the lead is from, initially it was from North Kesteven and South Kesteven to create an environmental crime partnership, which has many stakeholders, including the police, ourselves, or the district councils, National Farmers Union. That's one of their main focuses, is to deal with fly tipping. I think it's something that we could possibly ask that group to come and talk to this committee about and present something in future as what the initiatives are. But just coming back to your previous point, Chairman, about why this seems to be more of an issue, I think social media is part of this problem, in that there are people on Facebook offering to collect material for £10 or £20 and then dispose of it, which, when you think about it, that's very unrealistic. It doesn't stack up that you can actually pay someone such a small amount to dispose of material. I think people are quite naive if they think that they're doing something appropriate, because ultimately we all have a responsibility for making sure, it's a duty of care to ensure that any material that we dispose of goes to a registered proper waste disposal outlet. And people have actually been prosecuted for using these criminal outlets who are advertising and taking material by Facebook. So if you use that, you are then prosecutable, and people have actually faced quite substantial penalties themselves, because we all have a duty of care to ensure that any waste we produce has to go through a registered waste disposal or recycling outlet. So people are at risk, and I think it's something that we do possibly need to advertise a bit more widely. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that addition. And I was seeing, when you mentioned the notion of bringing our colleagues from NK and SK and other authorities about the crime aspect of this, I was seeing nods around the chamber. So if I could ask our officers to put their heads together and see what can be arranged on that front, I think that would be a very valuable thing to have. Councillor Kelly, would you like to come back one more time?
I mean, we have got CCTV and there have been successful prosecutions, and I want to emphasise it's not done on an industrial scale, but it is a problem. But CCTV has been, you know, is a way that we are dealing with it. So I would really welcome to listen to, you know, a crime partnership from the authority that you mentioned. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed for that. We'll follow that one up and we'll get it into the work programme. Councillor Maxter, you have been waiting very, very patiently.
Thank you. I don't mind waiting, Chairman. I thought that the reason the sites were closed for 2 or 3 days each week was to swap over the skips. Does that not work? Is that not effective in changing over so that when the site reopens on, is it the Thursday or the Friday, the skips are all empty, ready to go? That's my first question. Secondly, how does the new contract incentivise contractors to improve recycling rates at the Household Waste Recycling Centre? At the last meeting, we had a graph which showed us that the recycling rate at the sites has fallen by 10% from about 85 to mid-70s, I think, and below our target. There are other factors involved in that, but we all want to ratchet up the amount that is recycled from what's delivered to the household waste recycling centres. How do the new suppliers plan to tackle that? And finally, on the site visit, yes, a site visit to household waste centres would be okay. I can visit them myself at the weekend. If we're going to have a site visit, what I'd really like to see is the recycling depot where they sort out what's in our silver bin in SK, because I still don't know a white butter tub whether that's recyclable or landfill. I'm pretty sure I know, but that's not the only one that I don't know how to do it. Tetra Paks as well. I think Tetra Paks are recyclable, but most people might guess that they weren't. So I need education in that area. Thank you.
Mike, would you like to pick up that portfolio of questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Just regarding the last point, we do use Mid-UK, who are based in Caythorpe, and I think they would be more than welcome to a visit to the committee to see the recycling centre. They've got 2 substantial facilities. They are fascinating to go and visit. I think one of them, the newest one, only opened last year, so the technology is incredible, and I think they will be more than welcome to host this committee on a visit. As we would at the Energy from Waste facility and the recycling centre, just conscious that it can be difficult to fit visits in, but the invitation is there for 3 different types of facilities, which we're happy to facilitate through the chair. Regarding the first question on the sites being closed for 2 days a week, it does enable a lot more maintenance and servicing of the sites. If we do have any issues or any repairs, it does help with that. It's not purely the reason for being closed 2 days a week, but it does enable us to have a lot better access for the biffa trucks to come and swiftly move the containers around and arrange things in a better controlled environment rather than having it open to the public. We do still use the hook lift trucks during the 5-day opening. They have to, otherwise the containers would be full within a day, and therefore material would have to be rejected. So it is a 7-day operation. It's just that on those 2 days we do get quicker, more efficient access for the biffa vehicles. And regarding the incentive to contractors, it's something that we have put better performance indicators into the new contract. It's something we are very conscious of. We don't want to go down the route of penalising contractors for any drop in recycling rate, because a lot of the time we're not in control of what people present. So if someone turns up with a large vehicle full of residual material, it doesn't seem reasonable to penalise a contractor when they're not in control of what actually comes in through the gate. So it's something we realise we have to strike a balance, and the contractors do receive certain benefits from sorting out metals, for example. There's a shared income from that, which we will get 50% each from the amount of recycled scrap that comes through the sites. But ultimately, it's about talking to the contractors and working better with them. And they all want to do the same as we do. And there is an element of competition that if they can promote themselves as having excellent recycling rates in Lincolnshire, it helps them elsewhere in the country for new work if they're actually choosing to tender for other work. So it's part of an ongoing discussion, but we are very conscious that we don't want to penalise them. But it's performance and data is key to everything we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for those answers. I'm not seeing any further hands raised around the chamber, so thank you for those responses. The proposal on this one is as follows. I move that the committee endorse the report and recommendations, and that we agree that our comments are shared with the Executive Councillor ahead of his decision. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on, item 7. This is the Economic Infrastructure Development Land Sales Strategy. This report can be found on pages 33 to 60 of the agenda pack and offers an update on the revised Economic Infrastructure Development Land Sales Strategy. Another one of these things which is much easier to write than it is for me to say. Members are invited to comment on how far the various principles outlined will effectively manage, market and sell the assets and support the local economy and optimise capital receipts income. And I'm minded that this is very much a partner report to one that we had just before Christmas. The actions before us are: members of the Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee are invited to comment on what extent the various principles described above will allow the Council to effectively manage, market and sell the assets and meet the twin objectives of supporting the growth of our local economy and optimising capital receipt income. In particular, 1, to what extent the criteria described in this paper are appropriate and will assist the Council with consistent decision-making, and 2, to what extent will the targets summarised above provide sufficient rigour to the Council's development land sales strategy. We have a team effort this morning. The report will be presented by Simon Wright, Regeneration and Portfolio Manager, and Emma McCudden-Woodcock, the Regeneration Team Leader. So who is going to start us off, Simon or Emma? Simon,
yes,
over
please,
to you.
Chairman, thank you very much. And thank you for that introduction this morning. You're absolutely right, and I welcome the reflection that you made in your introduction there, that the relationship with the lettings policy, strategy, I should say, the strategy that we brought to you before Christmas, because I do see this very much as a sister document to that. The disposal and land sale strategy was first written in 2019. We have updated it and brought it to you today as a development land sales strategy to reflect our ongoing commitment to follow best practice and the market needs here in Lincolnshire, but also importantly to reflect the changing nature of our portfolio. Because since 2019 we have sold development parcels of land, most notably, for example, in Foxby Lane in Gainsborough, and we have also from time to time acquired sites and added to our portfolio where that's been in the long-term strategic land assembly interests for the County Council to do so. An example of that would be at the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone in Holbeach. So there are a number of themes and consistencies that run across the development land sale strategy and the lettings strategy, most notably the need for consistency in the approach taken by officers. But very importantly, both documents try to provide information to members, to support members, and it does also have the dual function of acting as a procedure manual to support officers in their day-to-day decision making. There is a lot of factual information in the strategy document itself, which I won't repeat here, you'll be pleased to know, but I would like to highlight 3 overarching points or principles which really underpin all of our work. The first one of those is that we at all times try and balance the economic growth, the job growth aspirations for the County Council, and in respect of bringing forward our commercial development land. And I think it's important to stress, as I'm sure the paper is very clear, these sites are commercial development sites. We're not in the market for selling housing land. We are very much about supporting the commercial economy of the county. And we balance that need and those aspirations against the need at all times to optimise our capital receipts for the county, and also to balance commercial best practice and various statute and legislation. Most notably, as an example of that, would be the Local Government Act and the need for us to get best consideration in selling our sites. The second highlight I just wanted to point out to the committee is that we are not interfering with the properly functioning property market. That is not our ambition, our intention, but we do facilitate and support where market conditions do require us to do so, and that is a very important tenet of our work. And the final highlight I'd like to say this morning is that we do act in a commercially astute way at all times. We do look at the bigger long-term picture in the strategy. For example, we do try and think of measures to prevent our land being land banked, because when we sell it, we want to see that immediate benefit working through to the local economy. So we do think about things through that, and that is set out in the strategy. So with that very, very quick headline summary of those 3 underpinning principles, I would welcome any comments from the committee this morning as to the appropriateness of the strategy and its ability to aid our consistent decision making, and that it's robust and fit for purpose. Thank you very much for your time this morning, and I'm happy to expand on any of the points in the paper or that I might have touched on in my short presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. In fact, I'll start us off on this one, because it just strikes me that this just goes right back to the beginning of our meeting today, when we were hearing from Councillor Davey and commenting afterwards that not everybody recognises, although we certainly do, that local government can be an incredibly important driver in sustainable economic growth in its area. I don't think local government gets enough credit for that, whether it's at county level or district level or unitaries, but it's incredibly important, and in many ways local government can do as much, sometimes more than national government, because we are there and we are on site. And it seems to me, and I'll be interested to hear what colleagues say, that this document reflects the need to allow us evolution in our portfolio. It reflects the need for us to be flexible and responsive to the economy so that we can help drive it. I think my starter question for 10, before opening it up to the floor, would be just inviting you to expand a little bit on our role relative to the market. I should declare an interest here that at the district level I'm also involved in this quite directly. The way we work is fundamentally we pitch in there, but we try and complement the market rather than competing with it. And I think that seemed to me, my interpretation, to be what came out of this document, and I wonder whether you'd just comment on that briefly for us.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased that that was your interpretation of the paper, because indeed that was a very important point that I certainly wanted to bring out this morning. You're absolutely right. We, and as previously stated, we don't interfere with the market. And I think I'm recalling an answer I gave the last time I was in front of the members here this morning. There are examples where market trading conditions in the County Council can be very difficult, because we do have a situation in Lincolnshire, and I've heard this from the private sector said to me, where land values are relatively low compared with other places in the UK, but a lot of the construction costs are just as high as elsewhere, which does put Lincolnshire in a difficult position. I think it's also worth bearing in mind a lot of the sites that we've inherited or acquired over time, and again applies to many other sites across the county council. The provision of services to that land is also very challenging, and that can be a huge barrier to the private sector bringing a site or a scheme forward. So what we often do, and it's dealt with on a case-by-case basis, is consider the degree of facilitation that we need to undertake. So in some cases we might go to the trouble of getting a planning consent on the site because that has a benefit of increasing our capital receipts because it removes risk from the transaction. In other cases, we might say that the developer is free to have a bit more flexibility. It's not such a sensitive location in terms of its risk profile that the developer can deal with that risk themselves. So we do look at these things in a case-by-case basis. But again, overarching, if the private sector wants to do something, we will not act as a barrier to their own delivery. I hope that's answered your question, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Looking around the room, would any other members like to raise a question with Simon or his team? I'm not seeing any hands go up. In that case, thank you very much indeed. I don't take that as lack of interest. Take it as an absolute endorsement of an excellent report. And it really is good to see this council, along with other councils, pitching in, particularly where the market is challenged in what it's able to do. Because I think we need to remember, we're not primarily in this for the money. We're primarily in this so that we are facilitating sustainable economic development, new jobs, new companies coming into our area, new businesses, and therefore new prosperity for our residents. And it's good to see us working very hard on that. So, formally speaking, the proposal before us is as follows. I move that the committee endorses the report and request that our comments from today's discussion are captured and taken under consideration by officers in finalising the strategy. Does anyone dissent? I am seeing no dissent whatsoever. In that case, that is agreed. And thanks again to our officers. Moving on to item 8 on the agenda this morning, committee work programme. This item is on pages 61 to 66 of the agenda pack. This item enables the committee to comment on the content of our work programme, and the report will be presented by Cara Hajianu, our scrutiny officer. Chiara.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all members of the committee. What members have in front of them is the committee work programme for year 2023, and this item enables the committee to consider and comment on the contents of your own work programme. This is not a static document, and it grows and evolves meeting by meeting. So in the next meeting, we're anticipating a service level performance reporting against the performance framework for 2022-2023 quarter 3 update from economy, flooding and waste. We're also due to receive a report around the role of the LEPs and the relationship with Lincolnshire County Council following government guidance. We shall also receive a report around labour market trends in Lincolnshire and the County Council's response. A report on local electric vehicle infrastructure, the levy pilot, and a report on the visitor economy situation for 2022 and prospects for 2023, and the County Council's response. We are also due to receive an energy options analysis for Greater Lincolnshire interim report. And in addition to these, we shall receive a verbal report, an update on Thedlethorpe Geological Disposal Facility Working Group before the next scheduled update, which is going to be a written report. And if I may just add at this stage in relation to this, just a reminder that to members of the committee and to the public that this site does not belong to the County Council. LCC holds a membership at the working group, and thirdly, that there are more than one interested parties. Therefore, at the next meeting, we shall receive an interim verbal update, but we hold the place on the agenda for our April meeting for a written contribution. In addition, and moving forward, just to let you know, I've added now on the work programme the broadband programme interim verbal update in the summer. We shall expect it around July, but if needs be, we can move that further or bring it forward on the agenda. And this concludes my update to you. Thank you very much.
Any questions on the work programme from colleagues? Everybody happy with that? So the action was simply to review the work programme which we have done. So the proposal is I move that we note the report and approve the existing work programme as detailed on pages 61 to 66 with the items highlighted by Cara today. Does anyone dissent? I see no dissent. That is agreed. That is agreed. And that, colleagues, concludes the business of the meeting. My thanks to everyone who's attended in the chamber. My thanks to everyone who has attended remotely, and my thanks to members of the public here or watching on the live stream or the recording. Thank you very much indeed for coming along on this very cold and frosty morning, and I wish you all a very safe journey home. And at 11:20, that now concludes the meeting. Thank you very much.